All right, everyone, welcome back to the Old Republic podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us, going to be back on the podcast for a second time. Cassie and I have been very excited about this movie franchise. We've been very excited about the storytelling. We've been very excited about this guest that we had on before. I'm very excited to have him back. So we're here with Michael Schrader. So, Michael, how are you doing tonight?
Great. Yeah, it's just a little bit of a summer vacation, finally getting this movie out and having a little breathing room after the big premiere. And yeah, it's really happy to hear that everybody likes the movie so much. It's been a good couple weeks since the movie came out. So yeah, things are good over here.
Awesome. Yeah, so if you've been following along with the podcast, we had on episode 106 to talk about Into the Spider-Verse. I believe at that time, when we had you on the first time, the first teaser trailer for Across the Spider-Verse had come out. Is that right? Does that sound right to everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we've been jazzed for this thing for quite a while, and then just released a couple weeks ago. As you mentioned, it finally came out. You're getting a little bit of breathing room in. I imagine that it was pretty stressful, kind of up to the wire. Is that something that you're doing? Or are you working on it till the very last minute until they hit play, at the first theater, pretty much? Or
legitimately yeah, it's a little insane. So they have different deadlines for different screenings, right? They have International comes out a few days before the domestic premiere, with the red carpet, and they get all the celebrities. That has a deadline, and then there's the domestic theater deadline, and then there's the DVD deadline. We worked on it so long that each of those are a little bit different. Each version that's out there has a little tweak to it.
Oh wow!
So I remember I got called in, super last minute of hey, you guys have seen the movie, no spoilers here, but the very, very beginning, Gwen is doing this monologue drum solo.
Yeah.
And we had hired out a studio to do that specifically. And they worked with a bunch of our artists, and they did an amazing job. And then the producers were like, hey, we just need a little extra. We retimed some things, and we don't have enough time, or we don't have enough time to send it back to the studio and keep doing iterations. It's going to be way faster if you can just do this. So it was
sure
a little intimidating, right? But so I did a version that I really liked, and that got sent out internationally.
Oh wow!
And then I was like, okay, great, we're done. Clean off my hands, and I can go home now, right? And they're like, okay, now we have a few days to do the domestic release, so here's some notes. They're like, oh, okay, we're still working on this thing, up until the last possible minute, and then just a few minutes after that. We were turning in stuff so late. Just a huge shout out to the editing team and the producers, and just putting this all together, really polishing everything up until the last possible second.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. I'm just picturing everyone in the office just waiting for someone to finish drawing something so someone else can take it and splice it in, and someone else can take it. And
the pipeline there was intense. It was just me sending stuff directly to the editor, and then the editor would drop it in, and we'd send it to ImageWorks for final polishing, and then we would send it to color correction, and then it would get just locked away into the movie after color correction, and that turnaround was insanely fast, way faster than like usual, I guess. Just because of the insane deadlines, and like everybody's working over the weekend, everybody's working Saturday, Sunday. I think I clocked almost a 90-hour week, a couple weeks in like April or May. Yeah, just when I got there, everyone was going so hard to get it across the finish line, and that was kind of wild. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, there is, the Bugs Bunny, like in a tuxedo with the black background kind of meme.
Yes.
Yeah, there was one that said, "I wish all involved in the production of Across the Spider-Verse a very pleasant salary." So, that's what we, like, and like a pleasant vacation, like a nice rest,
That's so funny. Yes. I raise my cartoon martini glass back at you. Thank you very much. It was, yeah, everybody. Like, I was only on the project, like, working, I would say, around, like 2 or 3 months was really, like, my time. Like, they're not worried about, like, the logos from day one, right? Like, I guess more context for everybody at home. So I work on the opening logos for the first Into the Spider-Verse. I did the designs and some of the some animation, mostly just the timing for like the Sony Ping at the very, very top, the Columbia Lady, the Marvel Flipbook, and then production titles for what was it? Pascal Pictures.
Yeah.
And
Lord and Miller.
Maybe that was it for the first. Yeah. So for the second movie, we added Lord Miller, and then I also got added to the like interior production title. So it's like after Gwen's whole like, here's the story. So after Gwen like steps into the portal at the very beginning, they just defeated the Vulture at the Guggenheim. They step into the portal, and then it does like the like. Miles's sketchbook is on screen for just a second, and it says like a Columbia Pictures film and produced by, like, all of those kind of like stickers. I animated those also, and then I also animated the very, very end.
To be continued?
Yeah, I did the To Be Continued and the Miles Will Return, and like the two titles of like Across the and Beyond. So they had a designer for those, and then I animated them just for the end there, the main on ends. But
wow.
Yeah, so it's a huge honor to be literally the very first and last thing on this crazy movie, just to get my fingerprints all over this thing. And then for this one, this project, I remember, usually I just do like a lot of the, early work of what if we put this here and we put this here, and then we send it off to another studio to like actually do the titles, or actually do the logos. And this time I was like, okay, like what's the pipeline? Who am I sending this to? And they said, oh, it's just you. Like we don't have enough time to send it to anybody else, so you're going to be our final delivery guy. And that was horrifying.
Oh.
Like that was like, oh, okay, this is so usually we hire like a whole team of people, and now it's just me. Cool, great, awesome, cool. So it actually allowed me a lot more flexibility and creativity, and like I got to like keep a lot of my designs all the way through.
Wow.
Obviously with like a ton of help from production designer Patrick O'Keefe, and directors, obviously Justin Thompson. Phil Lord would like text me at 11 o'clock at night and be just like, hey, can we change this just a little bit? I was like, yeah, sure, man, I'll be in the morning, like, let's go. So yeah, obviously, you know, this was I'm not working in a vacuum so much on this one. This was like a huge team effort. But yeah, I all of the first 2 minutes of the movie was me. A lot of assistance from Patrick and their design team. Jeffrey Thompson was huge, putting together all those alternate universes for Columbia Lady and Will Coyer helped out with some of the Marvel stuff and the Columbia Lady. But yeah, I put a bunch of crazy designs in there, and they were like, "This is good, go bigger," which was really unexpected, and a ton of fun, and a huge, I'd say, green flag on my resume. I am. It's super fun that they trusted me with the first 2 minutes of the movie, right? And and it was crazy to see it in theaters. Like the couple times I saw it in theaters, I'd never heard people applaud for logos before.
Oh wow!
So that was really tugging at my heartstrings to see that in person. Yeah, it really shakes it up from the very first second, and it's a huge honor to be that guy. So yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah, it seems like it was a big team working together, and I kind of had guessed like it's just such a big intricate movie, like it probably was like crazy at the finish line there. But I have to say, like, this movie is literally amazing and like the best like cliffhanger ending like I've seen since like Empire Strikes Back, you know?
That was literally the inspiration, was Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, that's so cool to hear that. And I just like saw it with my friend like that opening night, and when it ended, like he was like blown away and I was blown away, and I was like, I think like that could be, I think it's automatically gonna win. Like if this doesn't win Best Animated Feature, they're stupid. But I thought like it should be nominated for Best Editing and honestly Best Picture.
Well, thank you. It's such an honor to work on this thing. When we did our like huge wrap party for this movie, one of the directors, Kemp Powers, got up and you know, thanked the whole studio and everybody worked on it. But he was literally like, he's like, when I was a kid and I saw Empire Strikes Back in theaters, and like that ending blew my mind and changed my life forever. And he's like, that's what we were trying to do here, was to do Empire Strikes Back to just ruin everyone's day, to just shock and awe everybody in the theater. And I think it was pretty successful. I think it worked.
People responded to that. Yeah.
It did work. So that leads me into my question now that just came to me. Did you take some sort of sick pleasure in animating that final kind of shot?
Oh, for sure, right?
To be continued.
Yeah, but actually, there was a little pushback, putting to be continued or Miles Morales will return in, specifically like. It at the end of Empire Strikes Back, it doesn't say Luke Skywalker will return in, like, it just ends, right?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Luke gets his hand cut off and he stares off into the galaxy with his new sister, and like that's it. So there actually was a little bit of pushback from like the creative side to the business side, and story-wise, one of the earlier versions that I saw like months and months and months ago was basically like, huge spoilers, but is like Miles lands, he's talking to his mom, the conversation is weird, Uncle Aaron opens the door, and then it's like movies over, lights on, credits roll. And it was just like a hard cut off, and you just had to sit there like, wait, what? And I honestly think it was maybe a little too confusing for general audiences, for all audiences.
Yeah.
But that may have been my favorite iteration, just because it was such like pull the rug out from under your feet, and that was it. That was the movie. Go home, like sit with that, like think about that for the next couple of years while we make the next ones, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
it is a comic book conceit to have to be continued, though. So that's how I liked it, and I knew there was a third part coming. Some people didn't know that, but I felt satisfied. Like, I got a whole movie, and then it's like I have another movie to look forward to.
Right. And definitely, like, from the story point of view, like, I know they wanted this movie to feel complete, like, on its own, like, still with a fun ending, but like that it stands alone and it doesn't like lean on the rest of the trilogy to feel coherent. I also remember, I forget if it was when last we talked on the podcast, but one of the trailers, I think like in November, last November, we had put the title of the movie, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and then had graffiti pop up at the end that said Part 1. And I remember hearing back, like after that got released and it went, worldwide, and everybody's watching the trailer and it's great and everybody loves it, that we got feedback from the like head studio, and they were like, what do you mean it's Part 1? Like, we agreed. What do you mean? Like, we agreed to do another one after this already? We haven't. Okay. So we very quickly dropped Part 1 from the rest of the movies, which I'm happy about. I'm excited about the new. Well, I'm the title guy, right? So I'm excited about the new title.
Yeah.
It's like pink and blue, and it's fun. Yeah.
Oh, you want to change the title? I guess I can do that. Okay.
Yeah. First time I saw it, honestly, just when the opening logos were done, just like got out and like I saw what I needed to see, So.
Yes. Yeah. Just stay for the first 2 minutes, and then it's probably you can even get your money back. That's it.
That's right. I imagine it was something, having animated it for so long, and looking at it on your computer screen to then seeing it like full blown on like a giant like theater screen probably was pretty wild.
Yeah, honestly, that was kind of surreal, because it was like I worked on it all of March. Sorry. I started working on it in March. All of April. April was insane. And then like half of May, and then it came out in June, right? So it was more like some of these concept artists have been working on it for like years and years, right? And they're like, oh, I didn't even know that made it into the movie, and like, oh, this was so long ago, I almost forgot. Like, this is so great. And for me, it was so immediately recent that it was like, oh man, I forgot to change that one thing. Shoot. It was like, oh dang, if I only had a couple more days, I would love to get in there and fix that one thing. But it's sealed in time. It's frozen in carbonite, and I'll never get to touch it again, and that's fine. But there's still like a few temporary like placeholder things. It's like, dang it, if only I had like another 12 hours. But no, I'm super happy with it, and I'm glad everybody likes it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back to something Cassio was just saying about how this hopefully will be up for several Academy Awards, and going back to Into the Spider-Verse in 2018, that was nominated for an Academy Award, and it won. Be The Incredibles 2, I don't know. Maybe if you could just speak to were people that you work with or around, did you think that winning the Oscar was realistic proposition, or was that kind of a surprise to you all, or were you pretty confident you could win? And then what kind of changed studio wise after that?
Sure. So Spider-Verse came out 2018. I graduated school 2017 and I started work 2017. So like I had only been at the studio for maybe a year. And so I was so fresh. It was just like, oh, I showed up to work one day and they handed me an Oscar. Like it was so like it, people had been working on this for like years. Right. And, again, like the concept designers and these directors and producers have been working on it forever, and blood, sweat, and tears. They're working on it 24/7, and I literally just showed up at the end, and they gave me an Oscar, and so it was like, I just was like, oh, I guess this is just what happens. Like you just show up to work.
This is how movies work.
Awards, yeah. And so when we won, obviously it was huge. It was crazy. I learned, how about this? I learned a lot more about Into the Spider-Verse just in the last couple months, talking to Justin Thompson, who I think was production designer on the last one. Mm-hmm. And this was this was his first directorial debut, was Across the Spider-Verse. So he and I hung out a lot over the last couple months, which is super, super fun to get his side of the story. He said for Into the Spider-Verse, like they weren't expecting any acclaim here. He was like, it was almost more like a passion project of like, mm-hmm. I think this is fun and let's give it a shot. Like, let's take a risk. And so many artists kind of caught the vision and took it their own way. And for him, he was like, that was art. Into the Spider-Verse was art. It was emotional, and it was a passion project, versus he didn't want the sequel to seem like a product. Like if that's the two ends of the spectrum, if there's you're just doing art because you love it, or you're making a product because your boss wants you to, right? Like he's like, Into the Spider-Verse is its own thing. Like we didn't think it would be successful. We didn't think that there would be a sequel. Like it's a totally standalone thing. And so now making the sequel, how to recreate that magic, right? Like how to put all that hard work into it. There was actually a really good quote from Phil Lord recently where he's like, everybody says the word magic. This is so magic. It's full of magic. He's like, magic is just hard work. Like magic is not real. Magic is work. He's like, so much work went into this movie. So what changed around the studio? Honestly, I think Sony had been on the map for a while, Sony Animation, but mm-hmm. Into the Spider-Verse just made us like a bigger name, I would say.
Yeah.
Especially, okay, I think it gave the creative people a much longer leash to like play in the space and make something weird, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Into the Spider-Verse really kind of broke the mold on what an animated movie could be. And so, for sure, like, Mitchell's vs. Machines, leaned into that, and a lot of the concepts that were built around, Spider-Verse, like the hand-drawn trees. I remember that was like one of the first things I saw from, Mitchell's vs. Machines that like really knocked my socks off, was like these beautiful rendered trees, because they're like, if your trees don't look good, you're not going to like the movie. You have to stare at them all day. And he's like, so they made these like everything in Mitchell's vs. Machines. Okay, if Spider-Verse is a comic book brought to life. Mitchell's vs. Machines is concept art brought to life. Mitchell's vs. Machines has a lot of heavy brush strokes that you can still see on screen, right? It has a lot of underlying pencil lines, and it has a lot of outlines and brush strokes and watercolor. Like it is meant to look like concept art that is animated. So like how to make the shadows look more like watercolor and pencil, you know, that kind of a thing. So yeah, and then all the Katie Vision stuff. Mitchell's vs. Machines is about a girl going to college, but her family is in the way. And also there's a robot apocalypse happening.
Yeah.
And also she's like a movie editor. So she's like editing this movie that you're watching. And so she's stylized it herself. She's put her own like accent marks, and she's put her own fun, goofy, googly-eyed stickers on everything. And it was like this really fun kind of flat 2D hand-drawn quality to a lot of the like expression of the movie, which I don't think could have happened before Spider-Verse, right? Like it's so weird and it's so out there, and there has to be like a lot of trust between the creative and the business side of things, because like the business people are like, this is weird, like this is so wild, what are we looking at, why are there googly eyes on everything, why do these dinosaurs look so ugly? And a lot of that was from the director Mike Rianda, who was on Gravity Falls. So it was like there's a lot of Mitchell's vs. the Machines that I see in Gravity Falls. I guess kind of reversed, just chronologically, but like so much of that humor you can see in Gravity Falls and Mitchell's vs. Machines, which I love, and it's amazing and it's perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, things that changed. The artists got a lot more wiggle room to make some weird stuff, which I loved. And then we made Vivo, which came out just after Mitchell's vs. Machines, which was a little more. It was a musical.
Yeah.
With Lin-Manuel Miranda. But then all the COVID stuff happened, right? So, unfortunately, Mitchell's and Vivo, and I think there was a Hotel Transylvania in there that did not get a theater release, which was a huge bummer. I really wanted to see Mitchell's in theaters, but it never really happened. Everything, especially in LA, really got shut down for a very long time. So when I was working on Mitchell's, it was just like all of a sudden I'm working on this like Katie Vision 2D animated dinosaurs, and like basically like emojis that were like slapped on top of the movie. And just one day it was just like, hey, don't come into work for a while. We're gonna like, there's this new thing called COVID, and we're gonna see what happens. So it really slowed down on my end. And then like the next day, Sony started using a carrier service, and if you needed something from your office, you would send an email and say, hey, I need my chair, I need my computer, I need my monitor, like whatever, and they would just drive to your house and drop it off on the doorstep, and you know, you'd sign a waiver for it. So yeah, working from home was weird but exciting, right? Like, because it's kind of fun, it's kind of new, and the government says it'll only be for 2 weeks. How fun is that?
Yeah.
So LA just like turned into a ghost town. It was so bizarre. Nobody was allowed on the beaches, and so it was nobody was on the road. The freeways were empty. We didn't have toilet paper. Like, that was a whole thing. And we're also like trying to finish this movie, right?
Yeah.
So, No, I love Mitchell's, and I love the way it turned out, and Vivo. Vivo was one of the very first things I ever worked on at Sony. Huge bummer it didn't get to be in theaters, but really glad that like the Sony higher ups and the Sony big bosses let us make weirder and weirder stuff.
Yeah. That I literally wrote this down in my notes about Across the Spider-Verse, like not a corporation's product. It's an amazing piece of art and story, and I did see Vivo. I love the music, and I learned that, you know, his character was not a monkey, and it was a different kind of animal, and I was like, what? Like, and then kind of just like was like, there are so many different animals that I didn't know about, and that that makes sense that Mitchell's versus the Machines, like, we're seeing things from Katie's point of view. Like, she wants to be a director. She has her Mount Rushmore of inspirational directors, and
Yes.
I was like, it got me thinking, like, what is my, you know, like, Mount Rushmore, you know, and so that makes sense that we're
That's
kind of
good.
seeing it from her perspective, like, it's conceptual art.
It's funny you mentioned that Mount Rushmore scene. That was one of my bigger projects on the film. There's like during that scene, Katie's putting together like an application to film school, and she's like, "Hey, you know, look at all the crazy stuff I can do." And in that Mount Rushmore scene, there's like film cameras that are like barfing up MOV files that all have like weird little names, and they're shooting like cannonballs across her screen, and like all the text animate. So actually that was one that I was on for like a week or two trying to figure out how does a camera barf an MOV icon? Like what does this even mean? I'm glad that scene stood out to you. Her little Mount Rushmore of all of her favorite like female directors, all of her favorite inspirations there.
Yeah. And I also rewatched Into the Spider-Verse, and even though, like, it seemed like Into the Spider-Verse was just kind of made as a love letter, passion project to Spider-Man, and, like, pushing animation forward rather than saying, like, this is the style we should go for, and we've seen how that's impacted animation, you know, going forward, because they decided to do something weird. But I was just kind of blown away by like how much was set up in Into the Spider-Verse, in Across the Spider-Verse, and I'm guessing in Beyond the Spider-Verse. And even though like each of these movies stand on their own, like they build on each other, and that's kind of like a good I don't know, like when stories link together, like, you know, like the original trilogy of Star Wars, like Lord of the Rings, like each of those movies stand on their own, but they respond to each other, and I thought that was so cool.
Yeah. I think it really boils down to like knowing your own IP, like understanding what Into the Spider-Verse is going into, and like how to build off of that, right? Because like the writers were not planning on making a sequel for Into the Spider-Verse. Like it didn't have a crazy box office, you know. It just kind of came and went, and then really it really like shook the animation world a lot harder than Sony was expecting, in a really fun way. So yeah, and then like how do you build on that, right? Like I remember that was one of the biggest things Justin Thompson was kind of saying, of like, hey, Into the Spider-Verse was like the biggest groundbreaking animated film in, you know, forever, so no pressure on the next one, right? Like
Yeah.
no big deal. Let's just do that exact same thing again, but bigger, because we got to go bigger.
Just do it again, but bigger and better, please.
Oh my gosh, everybody had ulcers on this project. Like
Yeah.
everybody's working through the weekends, working through holidays, for years. I only got a taste of it. I was only there for like a couple months, but I felt so bad for I was on a phone call with Patrick O'Keefe, the production designer, and he's like, we're talking about logos, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I'll get somebody to work on the Columbia lady," and ooh, and he just stops mid sentence. I'm like, "Hey, you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, it's fine. It's just my ulcer kicking up again." It's like, oh no, he's gonna die in my office. Oh no. So luckily he didn't die, and he's taking a nice long vacation back home in Canada. And yeah, it's so fun to be in the room where everybody is in the trenches at the same time, right? Like where everybody is working their butt off to get this thing across the finish line together, which was I think that actually really came across really well in the final product of like, this was not just like one guy's crazy dream. This was 1,000 animators and like the best of the best production, story, all the above, and that the studio trusted us to make something weird. Like I feel like there was just a lot of I'm just gonna keep saying the word trust to make this thing work.
Yeah, because like when there's kind of bigger movies like this, like you have to have the business side of things figured out, the creative side figured out, and I didn't really think, like, from what I could see, I didn't feel like either side was compromised. But one thing I wondered, it kind of sounds like everyone kind of stepped up and kind of worked harder, but were there more animators on this project than Into the Spider-Verse?
For sure, yes. So Sony Pictures Animation, weirdly enough, doesn't do a lot of animating. There's actually Sony Pictures ImageWorks up in Canada, I want to say Vancouver, which is where all the animators actually are, where all the you see like the behind the scenes of like it's Spider-Man, but he's all like very, very 3D software, like matte gray with like a bunch of his, like, you can see like his bones and they're like, this is how you animate. So like all of that animation takes place up in Canada, and then in Culver City in Los Angeles is like the production side of the directors, the writers, the producers, kind of managing and directing all of that. So I heard a lot of rumors and gossip, basically, but the idea was like, so many animators worked on this that we had to hire out other studios to like get this done on time, and we had to like hire out, like, this is the longest animated movie ever, which is wild. 'Cause like, especially for animation, like animation typically is pretty short because like every frame is expensive. Like every second of film has a price tag on it in a way that live action is just a totally different kind of budget when you talk about film, live action versus animation. So to have the longest animated movie is also, I would say, probably one of the most expensive animated movies, right? With all those animators working on it and all the editing that went into it. And yeah, like I mentioned, like hiring out other studios for that like specialized in different types of animation, if that makes any sense. Kind of like,
yeah,
like Gwen's opening drum solo is a very different animation style than
Spider-Punk,
the rest of the film, right? Yeah, Spider-Punk specifically. Yeah. Crazy amount of work went into this.
And to that, when I was at the theater watching it, I'm sitting back, just kind of dumbfounded about all the stuff that's going on, and I just like picture like day one, meetings for Across the Spider-Verse. And you just have people up there like standing at like a blank storyboard and their like heads exploding. Like how do we even describe what's going to happen? So
Yes.
is that stuff like planned ahead, or is it done like more traditionally, and then you're like, okay, we're gonna farm out this stuff to different animation studios and people in house and kind of put their own like spin on it, or is all that stuff like literally planned ahead, or is it all completely on the fly? They just come in one day and be like, what would be cool is if Spider-Punk looked like he was cut out of cardboard paper, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think really, really early on, like early concept stuff, they just opened the floor to all concept artists, pretty much anybody who wanted a voice. They just said like, hey, what would be cool in this movie? Like what personally do you think would be fun to add into this movie? If we're going in the multiverse, we're going hard. Like, what do you want to see? And I think one of the things that a lot of things came out of that, but one on top of my mind right now is the Vulture from the opening Gwen Stacy world, where he's like a living Da Vinci manuscript with like parchment and ink, right?
Yeah.
Somebody just pitched that. They're like, hey, what if this was a thing? And then they're like, okay, let's lean into it. And then that became a whole thing. Same thing with Spider-Punk. I know that they were working on kind of Spider-Punk designs pretty early on, but like it was such a wild style that it took forever to figure out how to even do it. And again, from what I heard, like all of this is like gossip at this point, but basically just like there was part of the story where they were going to go to Spider-Punk's world, like his universe.
Oh, tantalizing.
But it was too much to animate. Like it was overwhelming. It was all of that newspaper halftone stuff was just so chaotic, and it was hard enough for all the animators and the rendering and compositing to just do one guy. So I think we still might have that on the to-do list for the next movie, to go see Hobie Brown's home world. So yeah, I really hope it works. I mean, it's so much of this stuff is just like sky's the limit, and but also like baby steps.
Yeah.
To get back to your original question of like how much of this was planned. Like I remember pretty early on, I was working with Justin Thompson on a totally different project at the same time while they were like storyboarding all this stuff. And like, so, they had the villain, the villain was Spot. And I just remember, like you're saying, like storyboard, like 3 massive cork boards, with just Post-it notes and index cards and Sharpies and push pins, right?
Oh, wow.
A little bit that like Pepe Sylvia meme of Charlie
Right.
Day like smoking and like hasn't slept in days, like red string everywhere. It was kind of that, but it was for Act 3. Like I remember Act 1, amazing, beautiful, like really well fleshed out, a few notes here and there. Act 2 was like 3/4 of the way done with just a few more gaps and empty spots. And then Act 3 was basically just like, work on this later.
Yeah.
It was like, how do we end? Like, what goes next? So that was super funny just to see like all these professionals just winging it, and I think that was mostly how it worked. For the majority of the production time was just like, this works. We have an extra day. What can we push in one more day. Like we have the time and we have the budget to go for another week. What can we get done in another week? What can we and prioritizing, getting like the minimum done first, and then pushing it and stretching it as far as you can off into the horizon, to really make something spectacular. Just super, super fun.
So, was there like a legal team that had to be like, do we have the rights to this person? Can we fit in this person? Do we have the rights for that? Was that kind of like an aspect of production?
I think so. Yeah, I think the kind of legality between Sony and Disney. I think the more Sony makes bigger and weirder stuff, I kind of hope that people are acknowledging that Sony's universe and the MCU are a little bit different.
Yeah.
Like we'll never have like a Captain America or an Iron Man, right?
Yeah.
But and I think there's some like gray areas of like, I remember Kraven the Hunter, like where does he land? And I think Sony fought for Kraven and Sony fought for Venom and Black Cat and a lot of the Spider Women, because it's like Sony has the Spider-Man franchise, and like how big is that? Like if you're gonna take that big chunk out of it. So when it came to like, what do we own? What can we play with? I think there's like the Sinister Six, which is pretty like well established Spider-Man area. So we got a lot of fun cameos. A lot of when Spot kind of explores other dimensions, and then when we see the Spider Society and the Go Home Machine, and all of those just real quick cameos. I loved obviously the Prowler, Donald Glover, but also
I was so excited to see that.
Oh right, yeah,
I love Community.
Yeah, I love that they got him in there. I remember seeing that like early on, and it was still storyboarded, and it was literally just like a picture from the internet of Donald Glover, and I kind of thought like that was gonna be it. Like it was just gonna be a JPEG of Donald Glover like trapped in a box. I thought that was extremely funny.
I mean, that kind of would have been amazing too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, but yeah, that was a huge Easter egg that I think like the marketing team wanted to put it in a commercial, and the directors are like, please, please, please do not put anything live action in the commercials. That's gonna like,
it blew my mind.
It's gonna give people the wrong intention. Yeah, right. That was one of the best parts. So much to talk about with Donald Glover, but legality. I think we pretty much had like, this is Spider-Man, we're running with it. I remember my biggest thing with legal was the opening production titles. We were working with this lawyer that we were just going back and forth, and he's like, Marvel is 10% bigger than Columbia. Can we find a middle ground there? Like, can we? And it was so much unnecessary. Like everybody's just rolling their eyes of like, what do you mean the font is too big? Like we're literally arguing about like font size and pixel width. And I was like, I have so many other things to do right now. Like just be done. We're good. It works. Move on. Anyways, that was the most annoying part of the job, but we got there, we got done, and it looks great. So can't complain too much.
Yeah. One thing I did wonder about, like, just as an Easter egg, like, in the ATM machine, whose face is on the bill? Do you know that?
Ooh, I do not. Like, can I Google that?
Because I'm like, it's not a president. I don't think it is. But I just wondered if it was, like, a director or something, and I was like, oh, that'd be funny.
Yeah, I wonder. I know a bunch of the concept artists are doing a lot of stuff on Twitter, like doing a lot of behind the scenes right now, which is super fun. But I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh, that's okay. Like, you can just claim it's yours until like someone says, "Okay."
Yeah, it's my face. I snuck it in there years ago, and no one caught me. No, it's funny.
Yeah. So, like I said, like this film, I don't know if any animated film has been nominated for best editing, but just like the whole movie, it's kind of what animation should be. I think like do things that live action can't. It's kind of like a comic book, but like also a dream. Like there's so many images like kind of superimposed and repeated throughout it. Like I saw it 3 times, so like I kind of like caught some things during like
Okay.
spots during spots like monologues. I guess like you can see like Earth 42 Miles with the braids during one of his monologues,
yeah.
and Gwen's monologue. It was like, oh, this kind of like foreshadows the story, like in Gwen and Miles falling out, you know, and like kind of build up of that relationship, you know. And you keep on saying trust. I just kind of keep on saying like it was amazing and it blew my mind, you know. But
Yeah, the Gwen monologue when she's doing her drum solo and she just keeps repeating that like.
And he's not the only one.
He's not the only one. Oh my gosh. But so like if you like watch it frame by frame and you get a second, like yeah, like you said, it has a lot of specific keyframes and stuff from the movie that are just abstracted and neon colors, and so like watching it back to back to back, I feel like that one has the most kind of foreshadowing of her and Miles on their crazy journey, just and the imagery of how those two people connect.
Yeah.
Is really interesting. I'm thinking specifically of Miles is invisible. He's followed Gwen into the Spot's apartment that's just like destroyed. He's standing on the ceiling invisible, and she's like looking through him out the window, and then she kind of unknowingly like turns her back on him, and it's as she runs off into Moonbatten. Anyways, so cool. So many good little vignettes like that I love.
Yeah. And I don't know, like I love and Into the Spider-Verse, it's kind of more of a crush story. And then in this one, what I like is like, even though Miles is kind of like the main character, Gwen is also like a protagonist. They're like deuteragonists. I'm probably saying that fancy word incorrectly, but like she's not just a foil for Miles. And
Yes,
I feel like it's such a good romance. They're both capable and they save each other at different points, and their problems aren't like kind of like the early 2000s and all that. Like it was kind of like love triangles were all the rage, but they
yes,
they have some real problems in this one, like trust and worldviews, you know, like kind of like what they've had to deal with, you know. And in movies, I'd love to see that kind of more. And like, you know, we're sometimes a KOTOR podcast, and that's what I would love, like with if there were ever an adaptation, like with Revan and Bastila, I think.
yeah. I like that the romance here was still very, I'm just gonna say young. It's not so overly dramatic, but you get enough that like he's interested. Like the whole sketchbook thing, I think that's hilarious.
Oh boy.
It's like, oh, there's so many of them. I love stuff like that. Very, very much like show don't tell,
Yeah.
right? Like this is a visual medium. One of my favorite quotes is, if you're just going to tell the audience something, then you may as well just turn the lamp off and just listen to the radio. Like, there's a visual aspect here of their relationship. There's some fun back and forth with all like the Hobie stuff. And he's like, wait, you mean you sleep over at Hobie's place? Like, what does that mean? Like, there's like enough fun little drama there to like keep everybody interested. But it's not so heavy-handed. And like the heartbreak at the end of the film feels more like, I'm gonna say like betrayal, but not in a romantic way, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not, he didn't catch Gwen making out with another guy. It's like, what do you mean? Like, you've been avoiding me? Like it's such a deeper hurt than something, just purely romance.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I knew Miles really liked her when she took the action figure out of the box, and you just kind of hear him go "Ugh!" and then he's like, "It's fine, it's fine."
I watched it opening night with a bunch of friends, and I think that tearing the box got the biggest reaction from my audience that I was watching it with. Like, everybody screamed like it was a horror movie. It was so funny. Out of everything else that happened, the most emotional reaction was taking the superhero out of the box.
It is funny because like you said, frame by frame, you can notice all these different things. And part of the research I did for this podcast is someone pointed out that there is literally in the Spider Society, there is the popsicle, the Spider-Man popsicle.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And I'm like, is his canon event like Uncle Ben melted? You know? And
right. What happened to his Captain Stacy? Yeah, what horrible dark deeds, horrible dark memories has the T-Rex scene, has the plushie.
Yeah, I love that you mention Spider-Rex, because I was like, I think he has web shooters, and I'm like, how did he make web shooters? How does he put them on his little arms? And
right.
I love that it says T-Whip and stuff, and it reminded me of Mitchell's versus the Machines, and all those little details. Just love it so much. But yeah. I guess, Brian, what were some of your favorite Spider-Man variants?
Oh yeah, I mean, all the Spider-Man variants are all great, and I love, especially kind of that first little clip where you're getting introduced to them, and of course, the big one is you go to Lego Spider-Man World. That's pretty great, and then when he shows back up, you get the old school animated, the Amazing Spider-Man. That one's really great, and how funny and squat he looks compared to all of the newer leaner Spider-Man. I like that. Of course, Spider-Rex, T-Rex Spider-Man. That's the best. I like the Spider Cat. That's good. I like when animals are things, basically. So
yeah, I guess, did you have any Spider-Man variants you really liked, Schrader?
Yeah, I think as a kid, some of my favorite ones were Cosmic Spider-Man, where just he's spontaneously imbued with all the powers of almost like the Silver Surfer kind of
yeah.
All of a sudden Spider-Man can shoot laser beams from his fingertips, and it's that's cool. I like that a lot. And they kept it a little bit in the Spider-Verse. I think he's but he can only have his powers within a specific universe, and so he kind of becomes the caretaker of all Spider-Men for a period, which I think is super cool. But I also loved whenever Flash Thompson gets a cool variant of
it's Captain.
I think it's Captain Spider, Captain Spider-Man, whatever he is, with his in this movie he's got like his varsity jacket, which I think is super cool, and or even like when he has like Agent Venom, like the Venom suit, but it's like a little more subdued, and it's not so carnage. Like it's not so like wild. It's just like it's a cool suit that he wears. What else? Oh, okay. As a kid, one of my absolute favorites was Ben Reilly, Scarlet Spider.
Oh yeah, he was hilarious in this movie.
As a kid, I was like, you know what? If I had spider powers, I absolutely would just do like a blue hoodie, like a rip sleeve blue hoodie is my jam. I love, and like how over the top, like very 80s grungy Spider-Man. And I love that they kept that in this movie, that he was like, oh, I'm just thinking about my past. And like being voiced by Andy Samberg is so funny. And just that he kind of gets to be this like melodramatic clown, right? Like nobody really takes him seriously, but he takes himself so seriously. Anyways, I love Scarlet Spider in this movie. His rendering style, like they got him to look like a grungy 80s Spider-Man, right? Like I love his style. And I hope he comes back a lot more in the next one, just because he's so cheesy. He's so campy. I love him.
What about you, Cassia? What are your favorites then?
I mean, I mentioned Spider Rex and Spider Popsicle. Maybe there's a popsicle world, you know? Yeah. It's a freezer in New York, so... and then I love the web slinger and the horse, and...
yeah.
It's great to see PS4 Spidey, and... I saw Tarantula. I used to read the comics, like, newspapers... Maybe they still do, like, they would come, like, with comics, and they had the Spider-Man comic strip and stuff, and I remember, like, reading the whole Tarantula story, and I was like, oh, he's in Across the Spider-Verse, that's awesome, I'm gonna, like, relook this character up, and according to Wikipedia, like, right before Tarantula's death, he developed the ability to shoot, webbing, out of, you know, where Spider does. Like, and I was just like, oh, maybe I kind of, like, forgot that for a reason, but, you know, like, that would just be interesting, like, if that was ever part of the conversation, and it's like, yeah, he's another version that doesn't do that, is probably what would happen, but,
yeah.
Yeah. And then Dream Spider variants. It would be awesome, like, if the T-Rex, you know, ever met, like, a spider mammoth, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
And a Danny DeVito, Everything Sunny in Philadelphia variant, you know?
I'm the Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I'm the trash man. I go out and I throw webs.
Spider Pig from The Simpsons would be awesome, too.
Oh, yes.
Not to be confused with Spider Ham.
Right.
And then the 90s cartoon Spider-Man. That would be cool. And I unironically love Turn Off the Dark. And, like,
oh my gosh,
what if they got, like, Reeve Carney from Hades Town to, like, I don't know, do something, and it's like, maybe their origin story is all the actors who got injured doing that, but it was way too high concept for Broadway, but I loved every minute of it, you know, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need some Easter eggs from that, for sure. That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how, I mean, like, social media right now is just showing you what you're interested in, right? Like, so all of my For You page, my home page, whatever, like, everything is Spider-Verse. And I love how people are taking it apart, and they are really just our the director called it frame romancing, of people are looking at every single frame, so give them something to look at, basically. So like all the Spider-Man plush that's in the chase scene for like, a dozen frames, but people slow it down and they zoom in and they're like, look at this little guy go. Like,
Yeah.
just all the stuff about Hobie. I love that Spider-Punk has like 5 lines. Like he's in the movie for like maybe like less than 10 minutes. He's in the movie for maybe 5 minutes. And he's such a crazy good character that he made such a huge impression, right? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I love all that stuff. Yeah, I think the secret to a good Spider-Man variant is just a good pun, honestly. Spider-Ham, Spider-Punk. Just put spider in front of something. Spider-Mammoth, I'm into it. Let's do it. I'll make a phone call.
Oh.
Let's get him in there.
Yeah. Why not?
It just needs to fall in line with whatever Spider-Man's quip is going to be, and then you're all set.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. That's kind of one thing. It's like there's so many of these different spider beings. Like, if they kind of thought about it, they do have similarities, but like differences and exceptions, like, are what make stories interesting. And yeah, like some people be like, this is canon, this is canon. It's like there's literally a popsicle spider person. So like, sometimes it's just like, just have fun with it, It's like it's just a story, Like,
yes,
have fun with it.
Absolutely. Real quick, talking about Spider-Man variants and Mitchell's, one of my favorite little Easter eggs. There's like Spider-Man in therapy during the fight scene.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, and then my uncle. And then the therapist is like, let me guess, he died. And then like all like Miles Morales being chased by dinosaurs and horses, like crashes through the wall. The Spider-Man in therapy, like in the chair talking about his past, is the director for Mitchell's vs. Machines.
I didn't know that.
That's Mike Rianda, and they kept him in there.
Yeah.
Anyways, I like that one a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty hilarious. I like that.
Yeah. So now that we kind of, talked about everything else, and this is actually a joke, so, like, we don't expect you to answer this. We're gonna, like, Brian and I are gonna pretend to, like, be asking all these questions, and you can just give the vague answer, but what happens to Miles in Beyond the Spider-Verse?
I think literally no one knows. Honestly, it's not even written yet. Like, fair. We don't even have a script. So sky's the limit. What if you got any ideas? Email me. That's
yeah. Well, Cassie and I will storyboard some things and send them over.
Fantastic. Yes, get the ball rolling. It's been long enough. We've been sitting on our butts for a week, and it's time that Lord and Miller got back to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming out in March 2024, from what I've seen. But like, yeah, there's still time to like write, animate, and do everything. Like, you don't really need to know.
I don't know where that due date came from. I don't know if that's real.
Yeah.
I think my understanding of it is I think they're gonna start writing it in like August, September-ish. And then it's just gonna be a whole nother round of like concept design, storyboard, animation. So yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath. I would be extremely surprised if there was a Spider-Man movie coming out next year.
Yeah, I didn't have my hopes up at all, but
I had my hopes up and they're dashed. I hear everyone's taking vacations instead of working right now. What is going on? You leave us on this. Schrader specifically is to blame for the cliffhanger. Literally told us that.
He's like, I just wanted to add that in, put it in. No one stopped him. So,
I hijacked the movie from my one little computer. Like, actually, just cut the movie off. Just, we're done with it. Move on.
Yeah. What is this to be continued? I guess we're done now. I guess. Yeah. No, but that is good. You definitely do need a break, because it sounded like you were working, burning the midnight oil, so to speak, to get this thing done right up to the wire. So now the movie is out into the world. You're probably going to have to, do another couple of iterations, maybe for like the 4K. They're going to be like, hey, could you tweak a couple things for the 4K?
Man,
but
I hope not.
but other than that, now that you're done with it and you can see all the accolades rolling in and stuff like that, you get a couple days off here to catch your breath. Are you going to get a chance to work on some other projects? Do you have stuff like already lined up to start working on in the meantime, or is Sony like, you all belong to Spider-Man now, so just get ready, just be prepared for that?
No, I definitely got a good warning. They're like kind of crazy. The director wants me to start working on the next one sooner. I usually just come in the last couple months of the production just to do titles and get in and out. But he said he wants me there as soon as they start doing concept art.
Whoa!
Which is way earlier, like years earlier than my usual thing. So love to see where that goes in the near future. But in between here and there, I mean, there's always weird stuff from like marketing where they're like, hey, we're doing a big thing with Burger King and they don't know how to do glitches, so can you just like make something? So I made a template for a bunch of our commercials and partnerships to like use our assets a little bit easier, which was like super, super fun. I love doing it. But it was a little bit scary of like I felt like very protective of this thing that I had built, right? Like all of like the Spider-Man glitches in the commercials and in the logos and stuff is like stuff that I have made personally. And then they're like, hey, can you tell Fortnite how to make a glitch? And I'm like, no. Like I don't want to, but I guess so. So yeah, smaller side projects. While I was working on the film, I also got to do some concept art for Fortnite, which was super fun. So like Miles's Portal backpack was something that I pitched, just randomly in a meeting. We did this huge like Nike advertisement billboard in New York that I got to help out on and do a bunch of like crazy huge 4K glitches that just absolutely crashed everyone's computer. Like everybody had just like the roughest time on that Nike ad. But over the next couple weeks, things are pretty quiet. Like everybody at work is like so tired.
Yeah, I can believe it.
So there's definitely like, but like Sony's still working on stuff. We've got like I forget if it's been announced and how much I can tell you about it. Here's an exclusive.
It's been announced. You can tell us.
Okay, great. You don't even know what I'm gonna say. No, it's the we're doing like a K-pop drama, like if an anime was animated, like if a manga, I don't know how to say it, but so it's like really, really cute, fun styles and like a K-pop drama, and it's like almost like if BTS was a supervillain or something like that.
Oh wow.
And we're following like these like anime girl like Sailor Moon type characters, and I've just seen some like concept art and some like rough animation for it, and it looks crazy and amazing, and I hope that does well. I don't know when it's going to come out. It's probably got another like year or two working on it, especially now that Spider-Verse is kind of like through the pipeline. Like a lot more resources get allocated to other productions, right? So hopefully, I think it's called like K-pop Demon Hunters or something like that.
Wow.
It looks super fun, and I'm super stoked about it. So yeah, there's my plug for more upcoming Sony animation stuff. But I've always got personal projects on my end that I'm working on, or I'll have a friend call me and they're like, "Hey, we just need advice on this one thing. Can you help us with?" You know, I'm always available for little stuff like that. I think it's super fun, and I like a wide net of weird work, if that makes any sense. Like I feel like I learn a little bit on every project, and so if there's a project, I'm willing to hear them out, see if I'm available. I'm not always available, so when I am, it's fun. I enjoy it a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. And I did just check on IMDb. K-pop Demon Hunters already on there, so I think we're all clear
great.
there on that.
Yeah, it's not like I would just lie to like hear about things like exclusively on our podcast, you know.
There's also Fixed by Gendy Tartakovsky. Just got announced recently at Annecy. It's about a dog who finds out that he's about to be neutered and like runs away from home and like does all the stuff that he can still do before he gets neutered. It's like a raunchy R-rated 2D hand-drawn animation. It's kind of wild, and I hope it does well. And I worked on it for like a day. They just needed some help with like an animatic and editing. But yeah, so I think Fixed might come out before K-pop Demon Hunters. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I think those are the next two big things coming out, and then we'll start working on the next Spider-Man in earnest.
So that's great. It sounds like you're keeping a pretty busy slate here, you know, aside from Spider-Man, obviously, but still have a lot of other irons in the fire, I guess, so to speak. So that's
for sure.
So that's pretty awesome. So I guess on a more personal level, then we kind of wanted to know then, you know, both kind of, you know, within working, you know, at Sony and doing those projects, but also, you know, in your own kind of personal life and your education background and stuff like that. What has been inspiring to you now that you've been, you know, kind of on this journey with Sony Animation for quite a few years now? What's inspiring to you about that, or what are you finding inspiration in, or I guess just as an artist, what is still inspiring you about it?
Yeah, this was actually something that came up pretty recently while I was on Spider-Verse. Like I mentioned, we usually, in the past, we've like hired out my job to like a whole studio, a team of people to do these logos, and then it just came down to me, and that was so scary. And I told him up front, I was like, "Hey, I am game. Like, I want to play in this space that you've created for me, but also I'm not much of a designer. Like, I literally just get by the seat of my pants every time you guys call me. Like, this is so wild that I'm even still here and that you like the weird things that I make. Like, this, like, it was almost like a confessional of like, hey guys, I'm glad you like it. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not much of a designer. So I actually got a chance to sit down with Patrick O'Keefe, the production designer on this one, and we just talked for like an hour or so about design. And he shared with me a bunch of like his favorite designers, and his biggest thing was like pay attention to the things that you like and why do you like them. So I compiled a list of things that I like. Top of the list was like Bill Watterson, Calvin and Hobbes comics, right? And I really enjoy his pen work is almost like calligraphy. Like he doesn't draw with just a regular Sharpie ballpoint pen. There's so much variation in line width there, and like a variation in the things that he draws. Like he can do a very soft, cuddly, cute tiger, and also a T-Rex riding in a jet, right? Like raptors in airplanes is one of my favorite things from him. And also beautiful soft watercolors that, it's anyways. So Calvin and Hobbes, top of my list. Alphonse Mucha, it was like one of the first, he did a lot of like cigarette ads. And he comes from like a stained glass background.
Oh, wow.
So again, like a lot of line width. Like he drew like he was designing a stained glass, and so like he has beautiful women with like long flowing hair, but also like these crazy thick outlines that come from his background in stained glass. Also a little more like abstract things. Like I love just textures. I love like a good picture of rust. There's something I really enjoy about like rust and like decaying industrialism. Like there's something there of like, once upon a time this mining facility was like brand new and fresh and clean and organized, and it's been abandoned for 50 years, and now there's like weird plants growing in the corners, like almost like a little bit of like Last of Us.
Yeah.
Right? Of like, once upon a time this was a busy, well-organized place, and now rust and plants and decay has crept in, and so it's like this kind of like man-made versus organic versus time. Anyways, just like even like molecularly of like how rust forms and flakes, and like I think that is very fun. I enjoy that a lot. Something that like has depth to it, and I think that's something that I really enjoy. Also like shipyards or ship breaking yards specifically, like they will just pull old, beat up, rusted out freighters up on the beach, and then just like a dozen guys with like blowtorches and grinders will just tear a ship apart from the outside in and just litter a horizon with ship holes. And I think it is like the most, I'm just going to say beautiful. Like it's so wild to see these photographs of like sunsets setting on well-organized shipwrecks. I think that's some of my favorite stuff. So showing this to Patrick, I was like, I don't know, here's a bunch of stuff on Pinterest I thought was cool. And so like having a third person telling me like, look at depth, look at contrast, look at focal points, look at color palettes, and pay attention to the things that you are interested in. He actually gave me a few other things to look into. One of his favorites is L. Lizitsky. He's a Russian artist who made like a Russian propaganda book for children.
Wow.
among other things. But his design is so intricate and so geometric. obviously, like, not in support. Here at Sony Animation, we do not support Russian books for kids. But like this thing was so well designed, with like minimal colors. Like it is black and white and red, and like that is it. And like and just it's triangles and circles and random little text bubbles. And anyway, so that was El Lizitzky and his Russian propaganda. That as long as you don't read Russian, it's probably fine. But then there was also when I was working on the Gwen drum solo. Justin Thompson, the director, is just a walking encyclopedia for all of these art styles, and so he's like, we are pulling this from Oscar Fischinger, who did these like paper cutout circles and squares, and he animated them to music. He had one called An Optical Poem that we used for pretty heavy reference for Gwen's drum solo. Anyway, so yeah, just like a ton of inspirations behind this film, and for me personally, just to like keep an open mind. And they're like, hey, you know Oscar Fischinger, right? And I'm like, no, I have no idea what you just said. Of course
I do.
Yeah, right, yeah, as I'm rapidly like typing on my keyboard mid Zoom call. Yeah, it was really great to see. And then like, again, I'm just gonna keep saying trust. Of like, I told the production team, I was like, hey, I want to play. I'm interested, but I don't know how to do it. And they're like, yeah, just go for it. Like you do it, and then if you need help, we'll step in. Like, you just say the word. And it was such a like professional trust fall of, hey, I worked on some stuff for a day or two. What do you think about this? And they're like, you know, this is good, this is trash. Push this further, simplify this. Like, it was so nice to have Patrick and Justin just right there. And also, like, not hovering over my shoulder, because they had so many other things to do, right?
Yeah.
That they literally were just like, okay, here's your assignment. Go run free, have fun with it, and we'll see you tomorrow. And then I just animated as hard as I could for the next 12 hours just to see if I could make something, like, worth putting into this movie. And it worked. So it's super fun and good, and I liked it a lot. I would also say, like, a lot of my design style now has a pretty heavy Patrick flavor in it. Patrick O'Keefe, when he's given me notes, you know, he's giving me notes on what he would like to see, and just how he organizes a composition and where he puts a focal point, and just the craziest, like, how to compositionally use color and use saturation and use anyways. Art is cool, and I like to do it, so my job is fun.
I loved hearing that. It's just so cool to hear what inspires people, and I wrote down, like, pay attention to the things that you like and why you like them.
Yeah, I think a big part of it too is finding out if you like an artist, especially modern, like Instagram or TikTok or whatever, like finding out if you follow an artist, what sources they like, and see how far you can kind of like track their design back. Like for a lot of illustrators and animators, there's like Andrew Loomis literally like wrote the book on how to draw the human head. So that's a big one that stands out. Norman Rockwell, Lindecker, just all of those. I would even throw in one of my favorites is actually Bruce Timm. He was the Batman animated series designer, and he has he was the guy who invented Harley Quinn for that show. Bruce Timm has just a lot of, I don't want to say simple designs because I feel that's reductive. He has a lot of well thought out designs. Like he's the guy who said, what if Batman was just like a big dark shape with glowing eyes? Like it's, what if there was a lightning bolt behind him and like that was it? That kind of like Art Deco Gotham style. Anyways, yeah, I love seeing that kind of stuff and finding out what other artists draw inspiration from other artists. I love seeing that stuff.
I've always loved Spider-Man, and I love it when I don't know, just there's so many. We live in like in some ways it kind of feels like a dark age of movies right now. Like we live in a world where there are so many like reboots, sequels, just kind of like, from different series and stuff, and some of them are good, some of them like I'm entertained by, but it kind of just seems like I'm gonna keep this very vague, but like there are just so many corporations, like just they're not telling stories because they're dying to tell them. They're creating products so they can increase streaming revenue or something, and of course it's a everything's a business, but like I just love the Into the Spider-Verse series because it celebrates Spider-Man. It's an incredible story. It celebrates animation. It pushes it forward. It inspired so much, and like honestly, I consider Into the Spider-Verse art. I consider Across the Spider-Verse art. It's just inspiring to kind of hear a little bit about like what it was like to work on it, and it's awesome you got to work on it, and I just love good stories. So thank you for contributing the logos twice and the to be continued to that. So yeah, Bugs Bunny suit meme, like pleasant salary, pleasant vacay, all the rest.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you back on to the podcast today. We definitely appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, or you're busy relaxing now. I know you probably like to catch in like an extra nap probably, but you came on and spent this time with us, and we definitely appreciate it. So everyone out there listening, make sure you go see Across the Spider-Verse. You probably already have, because it is doing gangbusters at the box office. It is amazing, and we can't wait to see what sort of accolades it gets, as we work our way through the year here. And a special thank you to Michael Schrader for coming back on the podcast and talking with us all things Spider-Man and animation. Again, we definitely appreciate it. So let people who are listening out there know where they can find you online. You have a really fun Instagram account. You've been posting a lot of fun Spider-Man related stuff lately, but other artwork and stuff like that.
I'm mostly on Instagram. Schrader, it's spelled SCHRAYDER. Yeah, come check me out on Instagram. I've just been posting a lot of behind the scenes stuff about the logos, and tagging a bunch of other Spider-Verse artists. So yeah, come check it out. I'm on Twitter too, but I haven't used it in a while. It took up too much of my day, so yeah, I'm just on Instagram, Schrader.
Yeah, absolutely. So make sure you go check that out, and like we said, check out Across the Spider-Verse and let us know what you thought about that film. We really appreciate it. So Cassia, I think that is it here for Across the Spider-Verse. We're gonna have to wait another year or two, maybe, and maybe we can get Schrader back on to talk about the third installment when it's time for that, hopefully. So I don't know. What do you think, Cassia?
I guess that's how it has to be. You know, I could like ask like frame by frame, like, what is this? Who did that? But I understand.
That's right, absolutely. So I guess I don't know. We'll leave it there, and we'll say to be continued here on our Spider-Verse coverage.
Great, thanks, guys.